We all know Matt Armstrong is an absolute genius when it comes to rebuilding supercars. The guy is on another level. But every now and then, things spiral completely out of control. And honestly, that's when it gets good. So today, we're watching him tackle the rebuild of a 2023 Ferrari 296 GTB. And trust me, this one is wild. But before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed to Aboyos, because we are not letting this Italian stallion go to waste. So here's how this all started. The car was brought to Ferrari themselves to get repaired. But here's the shocker. Ferrari refused to fix it. The damage was so severe and the labor costs were so insane that the factory literally said, nope. Apparently, Ferrari had never seen a car come back with this level of destruction before. And that's where Matt does what Matt does best. He sees an opportunity, he grabs it, and he films the whole thing for YouTube. He bought the completely wrecked Ferrari for $133,000. A massive gamble. Either he pulls it off and walks away with a 296 GTB at a fraction of the cost, or he fails spectacularly in front of the entire internet. No pressure. And just so you understand what we're talking about here, the Ferrari 296 GTB is one of the most insane machines Ferrari has ever built. It's packing a twin-turbo V6 with a 3.0-liter displacement paired with a full hybrid electric motor, combining for a total output of 830 horsepower. In a car this size, that is absolutely mental. American YouTuber Haggerty once described it as terrifyingly fast. And based on what caused this wreck? Yeah, that tracks. The driver turned off traction control while filming, and the car did what 830 horsepower cars do when you're not careful. The crash happened in Cyprus, but the car was being auctioned in the UK. So when the team first sees the car in person, it's the first time the crew is seeing all the damage up close. Matt had seen it before, but even he didn't know the full extent of everything wrong with it. First priority, get the car moving. The engine is completely dead, so the only option is to push or roll it onto the trailer. It's getting shipped in a container, from Cyprus to Greece, then on to the UK. Right away, you can see there are 0 suspension parts on the front right. Ferrari had already stripped them off when they were pricing out the repair. So the team gets to work. They start with the inner steering assembly, pull the rubber boot, disconnect the joint. Luckily, they're still in the Ferrari facility and have access to specialized tools. Part 3 comes off, and at this point, the team still hasn't seen the worst of it underneath. And that's actually the most critical part of the whole car. The motor and the entire hybrid system will eventually need to come out because of what's hiding below, but that's a problem for later. For now, the new joint goes in, gets torqued down, rubber boot reinstalled, outer joint connected. Brakes look fine, but the front lift system hose is cracked, so that comes off too. 3 sections removed, and the front end is now ready for new parts. Matt then bolts in the control arms. Ferrari had stripped the old ones, so he's applying thread locker and installing fresh hardware. Ferrari doesn't use standard bolts here. They use specialized fasteners with alignment shims to dial in the geometry. All of those original bolts were snapped, by the way. Moving to the brakes, caliper off, rotor off, hub inspected. The rotor looks salvageable, but the hub is damaged. Some parts are still usable, though. The control arm looks bent from the outside, but it can be disassembled piece by piece. To swap the damper, they'd normally need a spring compressor, but Matt's buddy decided to do it the sketchy way. Manually, without one. Bold move. The old damper is out, new one going in, but it's missing the specialized bushing, so they head inside the Ferrari facility, use their press to pull the bushing from the old unit and transfer it to the new one. The replacement unit only has around 4,000 miles on it, so basically brand new. Fast forward through the reassembly, lower arm bolts in, old shims are temporarily reinstalled for now, they'll be aligned properly later, active suspension connector goes on, front lift hose reconnected, anti-roll bar link installed, and it's in good shape, so they're reusing it. Progress is real at this point. Hub is assembled, special connector ports installed. Next up, brake fluid flush, done via vacuum bleeder and computer. On a car like this, the brakes must be pressurized or the car won't even start. They grab a cheap second-hand wheel for about 50 pounds. Not pretty, not balanced, but enough to roll the car. Then they hook up the battery and the dash lights up. But there's a problem. The hybrid system is throwing a fault. The screens are glitchy. Something is off electrically. Turns out the pyrofuse, the safety fuse that cuts power after a crash, has tripped and killed basically everything. Even the diagnostic tool can't read the car. As far as the computer is concerned, this car doesn't exist. They put it on charge, hoping it'll sort itself out. A few hours later, still nothing. Matt's theory? Every single sensor needs to be connected, and multiple safety systems, lights, airbags, all of it, need to be online before the ECU will even talk to them. The car needs to be fully reassembled just to be scanned. This is rare, but it happens. Day 2, last day at the facility. The car is sitting on 4 wheels, but the engine won't spin, and the handbrake is locked. So first order of business, release the electronic parking brake. They pull the motor, release the cable, do it on both sides. Now she'll roll. The car gets loaded up and shipped, Cyprus to Greece to United Kingdom. 6 months later, the Ferrari finally arrives. And the real work begins. They clean off the travel dust, roll her into the workshop, and start pulling the doors and rear quarter. Right away, chassis deformation, cut wires, severed hoses, and a hole in the floor. It's repairable, but it's bad. The underbody cover comes off, and the full picture of the damage is finally visible. The rear subframe, diffuser, turbo coolers, all destroyed. The rear bumper actually looks okay, but it still needs to come off to access everything. The active rear wing gets unbolted, upper cover removed. The car is incredibly light. A lot of it is made from composite materials. The rear quarter is attached with a mix of bolts, rivets, and welds, and the roof might need to come off too. The wiring back there is absolutely insane. Twin turbo plus hybrid means a spaghetti nightmare of cooling lines, high-voltage cables, and sensor harnesses. But all the carnage is in the rear. The front will be a straightforward fix. After a conversation with his dad, Matt's confident the front end is fine and they can move on to dealing with the rear structure. To properly remove the rear quarter, they need to know exactly how the roof is attached. That means pulling the entire interior. Seats out first. Carbon fiber race buckets. Incredibly light, stunning design. Most of the interior is completely undamaged. Both seats come out, exposing the floor underneath. And there it is, a clear, visible hole in the floor pan. The passenger was genuinely lucky nothing came through that gap at speed. The airbags deployed, steering wheel bag, dashboard bag, both curtain airbags fired on impact. The seatbelts also fired their pyrotechnic pre-tensioners, which means they'll all need to be sent off for refurbishment. Center console out next. On this car, it's actually straightforward. A few hidden screws under the cup holders and it lifts right out. It's not even bolted to the dashboard. Rear carpet out, roof lining out. The curtain airbag cylinders run the full length of the roof and are attached with Torx bolts. No wiring from the rear. Matt sends all the airbags and seatbelts to a specialist team who will repack and reset everything. Way cheaper than buying new Ferrari parts. With the headliner out, the floor work becomes much easier. The damage is clear. The floor pan is punched through and it's attached with rivets throughout. The cleanest way to remove them is to drill out the heads and punch them through from above. It's tough work. Aircraft-grade rivets don't give up easily. So Matt cuts out the entire damaged section first to give himself better access, then uses a chisel and hammer to separate the broken floor from the structural sections that are staying put. The old floor comes out. The new panel, pre-ordered when Matt first bought the project, gets test-fitted. It needs to slide in at a specific angle, threading underneath some structural pieces and over others. Once it's perfectly seated, he drills through the original rivet locations and sets all new rivets. Seat-mounting bolts go in to pull the reinforcement sections tight against the new floor. Then they drill every hole and install shorter rivets in the thinner sections, replicating the factory pattern as closely as possible. The result looks a little rough, raw primer next to black surfaces, but it gets sent to the body shop for color matching and sealing. Before that, Matt pulls the airbag control module because it contains crash event data. From underneath, he sprays a color-matched coat, mixed and loaded into a spray gun, spot-on match. Then seals everything with underbody sealant. It doesn't look factory perfect, but it'll do exactly what it needs to do. He's dealt with this before on the BMW M5 project and knows the factory uses a robotic applicator. Hand applying it always looks different, but performance is identical. Now for the roof. The roof on this car goes for around $8,000. Matt is nervous. But good news. After checking the rear quarter attachment points, they realize the roof does not need to come off. The quarter panel detaches from underneath, and the welds on top are easy to access and separate without disturbing the roof. That's a huge win. They cut a small section for the new structural insert. The insert saves time and protects the expensive roof. Damaged tubes get cut out to expose the repair area, and Matt's dad explains the process. Cooling lines and air ducting need to be replaced. Metal sections will be cut, cleaned, fully penetration welded, then reinforced with aluminum plates. On the interior side, the dashboard needs to come out because the airbag deployed. Dashboard removal, airbag out from behind the steering wheel, instrument cluster removed, upper dash panel pulled. They source a used dashboard with its airbag already fitted for around £2,000. A smart move versus waiting on official Ferrari parts. New dash goes in, instrument cluster reinstalled and secured, all buttons and console covers go back on. New carpet laid, airbag control module reinstalled under the floor, carpets and covers layered back on top. Center console back in, all connectors and plugs hooked up, seats reinstalled. The dashboard is done. Next, the steering wheel airbag. The 296 GTB shares airbag components with the Ferrari Roma and Ferrari 812, which made sourcing a used one much easier. Back to the weld repair on the rear structure. They lay down the weld, flatten it, add metal reinforcement plates on top. Matt's friend Bobby actually argues that a single pass weld would have been sufficient. Ferrari uses the same technique in comparable areas from the factory. With the structural repair complete, fuel tank reinstalled, engine and gearbox back in position. Chassis and subframe bolted up, fuel tank bolts secured. Rear brake lines connected. Wiring begins. Bobby works the right side, Matt takes the left. Oil line connectors back in, engine wiring harness plugged in. Then, the hybrid battery goes back in. Bolts torqued, mounting bracket secured. All high voltage cables connected. Ground wire attached, fuel control unit reconnected, a few custom repairs made to connectors that couldn't be sourced through Ferrari. Coolant lines back on. Everything around the rear of the car reassembled. Hybrid battery on charge. The blue light comes on. Charging is active. 30 minutes later, they attempt a start. All the gauges fire up, but the start button is missing. Classic. They reinstall the safety accessories. Door sensors, crash sensors, lights. And when everything is connected, the dashboard comes alive properly. Still one fault in the battery system, though, which pulls them right back to the beginning. They suspect a blown internal safety valve. Battery comes back open. They find a control module on the cell array that could be the culprit. It gets pulled and sent to the airbag specialist team to see if it can be reprogrammed and reset. As of right now, that's where things stand. All theory, nothing confirmed yet. Stay tuned. This build is far from over.